Welcome everyone to another episode of Product Pain to Gain. This is the second episode of a series of 2 episodes, and today our guest again is Binny. Hi, Binny.
Hello, I'm so happy to be back.
Awesome. So Binny is the founder of The Inkling Effect, a coaching and leadership training consultancy that helps professionals align with their strength and with their career goals. And with over 2 decades of experience in digital product management and team leadership, Binny has a deep understanding of how to nurture individual talents within the teams, but also how to play towards the strength. Let's jump right in. Binny, why is it so important? Why is it such a cool place to know your strength when you're working in a team?
Working in teams is really hard. And I think when you put the pressure of delivering a product and deadlines and delivery teams that are often new people that have never worked together, but you've got to be effective quickly, it puts a lot of pressure on everybody. And one of the things that I worked out really early on in my career as a manager of people and a leader of product people and delivery teams is that having a deeper understanding of the strengths of each person in that team is so powerful to get the most out of the individuals, but then also get more out of that team. And initially in my career, and I touched it on in the first episode, I started with Myers-Briggs, and I had a product team. I was given a product team, so they said they're dysfunctional. They all want to leave. Everyone's just sort of doing the bare minimum. Can you come in and do something with it? And I'd never managed a team of this size. I had 7 product people. I'd only ever managed maybe 1 or 2 people. And this goes back to, in the previous episode, I talked about my innate ability to do this, to spot strengths in people and to work out how to align them to work. And I've got another strength called maximizer, which is about looking at a team and making the team stronger than the sum of its parts by aligning people to their strengths. So you put those 2 together and it's what I call superpowers, because I was able to do both, look at the individuals and then look at the team as a whole. So I used Myers-Briggs to just change the allocation of work that I was giving to certain people, because I saw, one person was really good at processes and product methodology, and somebody else was more the ideation and doing business cases and pulling that together. Another person loved data and analytics. So I didn't change their entire roles, but I just sent certain work their way and would emphasize certain things for each person. And every single one of those people in that team said for the first time in their career, they'd felt seen. They loved more of a greater percentage of their work every day, that it's probably one of the best teams they've ever worked in, and a manager that actually got them and had their best interests at heart. So the impact was incredible. Now, I didn't know what I was doing. I'd not read anything. This was back in the early 2000s. And it's actually a method called teaming that I'm going to put up a book now. A gentleman by the name of Marcus Buckingham, who wrote this book, Now Discover Your Strengths. He talks about this in a new book that he has written now about love and work, and it's about teaming and finding out what everybody's strengths are and then rearranging your team according to that. And it's throwing out, again, that term, throwing out that myth of completeness, that not everybody can do everything really well. So work out who does what well and rearrange things accordingly. And I was, design thinking, I was experimenting with this team. I didn't know if it was going to work, but because of my innate talent, my number one, I kind of did know, because I understood everybody and I had this feeling that this was going to work. Probably way before its time, but very effective. And I'm still in touch with that entire team 14 years later, having worked with them because of that relationship and understanding that we had of each other. So it's really powerful stuff, but it's not done enough, and it needs a manager to also be a coach for it to be effective.
Mm-hmm. So let's dive deeper into how to start with it. I think, like, what do we usually see in teams, or what is the signs that that safety and that understanding of strength is not there. So dive a
Yes,
little bit deeper on identifying the symptoms, right?
absolutely. So let's fast forward to the most recent role I had in product as a head of product at a university. And I was both managing a team of 7 and 3 delivery teams on a large project. So before I started coaching all of these people and before I got them to do their strengths assessment so I could work with them knowing that, we had planning sessions in Agile where, everybody would turn up and the product owner was trying to run the session, and some of the developers go, okay, we got it now. All right, we're off. We're going to start working on it. And we were 20 minutes into a 2-hour planning session. And I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. And then other people in the room are going, but we need to discuss this. There are risks we haven't identified, and we need to work out what information we need to gather. And so these guys, you could see, had strengths like deliberative, which is what I use is the Clifton strengths. They had analytical, they wanted data and proof and evidence, and they had discipline, and they wanted to plan it out and work out the order of doing things. And I found out later that the developers that just wanted to walk out the door and get doing it had strengths like adaptability, which is living in the moment and going with the flow. So sitting there and planning it out was actually torture for them. So you were never going to get that group of people to all agree to spend that 2 hours there, and they were never going to see how the other saw the world and wanted to deliver this product. So that is when you've got a whole mixed match of strengths together, all trying to work towards a common goal. This is the pain of product, hey?
Absolutely, yeah. That alignment, and how often, and I experienced that, I'm still experiencing it. How often are you like leaving that up to like pure coincidence, right? So
Yeah.
you don't really sometimes see, and especially when you start with it, you don't see the people, you just see the message, or you just see the content, right? And as a product owner, product manager, whatever your role description or role job title is, you want to get that done.
Yes.
You see the content, you're like giving your speech, bum, or even worse, kind of just writing it down and then handing it over, right? And then that's it, right? But that's not like how a team is built. Okay, so let's see. We have that team, we have that situation. I think it's like, I would say that's in most of the cases we find that situation, that it's not like working as it should be. We start with the scenario of you're in a corporate environment and there's an existing team. How would you tackle that? How would you go about that? What would you kind of do?
I'll give an example of this situation. So I said, okay, this was my experiment. I was already a certified strengths coach. I'd been doing it for quite a while, but I thought this is the best example of how to turn things around. So I got permission for my whole department to start running leadership programs, doing strengths, and then said, could I actually run this entire project of these 3 delivery teams and my entire product team, do a strength assessment for every single one of them, and then run afternoon workshops with the team together, showing all of the strengths up on a screen openly and having this really open conversation about who's really great at things and who could lean on someone else in the team in some areas. Like, no shame, just complete vulnerability and openness. And there were people that walked into the room and said, what is this? Are you trying to work out who you're keeping and who you're getting rid of? The skeptics. There's always the skeptic. And I was like, no, this is going to aid us in being more collaborative, greater innovation, improved productivity. I hope that person at the end came up to me and said, this has blown my mind. How can I learn more about myself and what this means? So most people walk away realizing that the intent of everybody in any interaction when you work in product is not to be a blocker. It's just that they see the world differently to you, and they may well have a talent that's almost at the opposite ends of the spectrum in how it operates. So for me, I had ideation and futuristic and strategic, which is this visionary, what could be, imagine the future. And someone would go, well, who has analytical and needs proof and deliberative that needs all the fine details. Well, how do you know that's going to work? So, well, I don't, but we've got to imagine first. We've got to define what we're going towards first, but they want the hard facts and the proof. So you've got this kind of ideation blocker going on in the middle of an ideation session. But when you know where they're coming from, and I often use the Edward de Bono 6 thinking hats, because it can actually invite certain strengths to have their input at certain times so that you don't get the flow being ruined. You actually say, okay, let's do the ideation first. So everyone with ideation will get involved, and futuristic and all of those strategic thinking talents. Then all the people that are about execution. So it'll be the plan and what's possible and the risks and the, all the things that are about getting stuff done and moving forward. Then you get them involved and go, right, pick it apart. Tell us what we need to do now, but don't do it in the middle of ideating. So it's about everybody in the room knowing there's a place for everybody, and no one should be offended by questioning or someone not having data and facts because they're imagining something. They're just not like you. But when we partner together and you've got someone that runs off and gets the data and the facts and the analysis that supports this vague idea that I might have, wow, stuff starts happening. So it's like your orchestra, being the conductor of an orchestra and telling each part of the orchestra when to play, and now we're all going to play together. And that's how I see it, but that's coming from my number one strength. So it was so much fun to do this and to have all these teams understand each other and my product team understand each other.
Absolutely. I think that's so cool. Before we dive into staffing and maybe even like the founder situation and picking the right people that fit, let's stay for another couple of minutes in the existing environment, because I think most of us in product are already striving and growing in such an existing environment. How would you start? Like you're a product manager, and that's the scenario, right? You're a product manager. You are in a corporate or in a company scenario. There's a couple of teams, experience teams, platform teams, delivery teams that are already existent. You see some dysfunctions. You have the idea of hope. Let's go identify our strength and rearrange a bit how we can do the work together. How would you start in that scenario?
So I would naturally go to the tool that I use, because that's something that I've chosen and found super effective and proven that. So I would ask permission, and often they'll fund this for you if you can show, that this is going to help with collaboration, communication, productivity, individual engagement, innovation, all of those things. They'll often say, yeah, we'll support that and pay for that as part of a professional development. So have everybody do their strengths assessment. Then you can muddle through it and sort of look at everybody's strengths and work out, okay, well, what are we lacking in? What have we got lots of? What are, the different strengths that might butt heads and cause conflict? But without the detailed knowledge, it can be a bit clunky. So having a coach to come in could then run, which is what I did, workshops. And so as someone that specialises in this or whatever tool you may decide or research to use to do with strengths, would then look at, well, what's the distribution of strengths across the team? And then ask the team, where do you see we've got gaps? Is that a concern? You may have no representation of a strength in a team, and maybe that's causing the problem. You could have an overrepresentation in one area and there's too many cooks in one particular area, and that's why you're not coming to any decisions. So having I have software that pulls it up on a grid, so you can see what strengths are in the strategic area, what strengths are in the relationship building area, what strengths are in the influencing area, which is quite strong strengths, and then what strengths are in the executing area. Not everyone has a cross-section of all, so they'll potentially be skewed towards wanting to get stuff done while we're still in, ideation mode.
Mm-hmm.
So then you start to say, okay, well, what we need to do is give them something to do so they don't feel like they're trying to push us to get started too soon. So you know how to feed each person's strengths, and you go, while we're at this stage, what we'd love you to do, you've got this strength. Could you go off and do this? So you sit down as a group and have a really vulnerable, open conversation. And there's activities where you can group people up into all the 4 domains of executing, strategic, relationship building, and influencing. And they then have to do a little presentation back to the group on, this is what we're like. So then you start to recognize this behavior is because I've got influencing. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just think I've got a better idea and I'm really good at communicating it. And that's what comes with that. And then the relationship building people will want to spend time getting to know people and will want to probably have a one-on-one person in the team before they start working with them, because it gives them a sense of comfort to do that. So it's helping people that lead with certain strengths understand how everybody that leads with a different strength operates. And then another great thing that I've done is then go off and do, I don't know whether you have this overseas, but escape rooms where you go to a room and try and work the puzzles out. So you wear your top 5 or 10 strengths written on a sticker.
Mm-hmm.
And then you talk about before you go into the escape room, because it's a level playing field there. No one's better than anybody else. And you look at all the strengths everybody has and says, well, when we go in here, I would expect you to bring this, this, and this. And we want to see that from you. And then have a debrief afterwards. And it's amazing. The quietest person in that group all of a sudden steps up and starts showing you strengths you've never seen before in that kind of environment. Now, that again was an experiment of mine. And it was, everyone's just like, that is the best offsite development we've ever done, because they had fun but learnt so much about themselves and the team members they work with all the time. So they're just a few ways that you can go about doing this.
Yeah, it's funny. I took my team to an escape room last year, and I have the exact same experience. It was so like it was fun, of course, right? We worked together, we had fun together, but it was also a very good learning experience to see how people react to certain decisions, or how analytical people are, and even without like intentionally going in there with like a strength profile and like the things that you just provide, which I think would be much more beneficial because you then like intentionally and actively understand. Still, we got out there after 1.5 hours. We got out there knowing each other much better than before, and I think that is truly powerful. I totally agree. Escape rooms is the secret. All right. Cool. So, like one step before, and then we look into stuffing. But how would you sell the idea internally? Can you give us some like key points or some things to keep in mind when preparing and when like ideating around pitching this to higher up or to the CFO maybe who needs to pay the bill at the end? How would you tackle that?
I'll start by talking about the way I tackle it with an individual when they're selling themselves in a job interview, because it's the same thing, but you're selling it on a group scale, is that you were born with so much value and so much capability to give to this world and to give to your potential employer if you're applying for a new job. And if you don't know what that value is, then you're not delivering the greatest value that you can to your next workplace. But if you can tell them that I've done strengths coaching, I know what my strengths are, or almost superpowers, because when you know what they are, you can almost turn them into superpowers. Like we're talking like acts of people just are mind blown at what you can do. So as an individual, you are doing yourself a disservice by never knowing the true value. And really, there are so many people I meet that spend 10 years wondering, what is the value? Why am I here? What am I here? What's my role in the world? Because they haven't yet identified what that value is and understood it. So when you look at an entire team, you're talking to the CFO going, you've hired all these people, you're paying them all, yet they all don't know their true value yet. Imagine if we could ignite that in every single person in that team. And then when they interact together and can do so much more, knowing that as a team and partnering together, you're going to get so much more money and return on investment for each one of those people there than you're currently getting right now.
Love it. I think that's perfect for selling that internally. I think you have to do that. Not everybody understands the value of psychological safety, of team culture, right? So sometimes you need to step up and do that. From a product manager perspective, I think also having such a team at hand, like a little, kind of perfectly working a group of people, I think this is so powerful, right? You have an idea, you can prototype it, bam, everybody works together. I think that's awesome, right? Okay, cool. So let's look into staffing for a couple of minutes, because it's also a really interesting aspect of this. When you need to fill a gap where the rest of the team, let's say we have a small team, they have their weaknesses there or lesser strength, and you're looking for someone. How would you go about that when looking for someone, and how would you identify in a hiring process, like what's the right personality, and how do I go about it?
So a great example was something I had in my last role in product. I was head of digital product. I had a team of 7, yet I was the only one in the team that had influencing skills. So these skills are, communication and getting ideas across, and they're quite, when I say strong skills, in that it's about presenting and business cases and wording things in a way where you're influencing the decision. So what it meant was we had these huge projects, huge stakeholder meetings, and no one else was confident presenting within the team. And this is what I say about this myth of completeness. They're all amazing product people. They just weren't great at presenting, which is kind of essential for product, but it didn't make them not good product people. And so the weight was on my shoulders to step up and take whatever they were working on and be the voice of that and the presenter, because I knew that was partnering with me to use what I was good at. Except it got too much for me. When we had someone leaving the team, I went, right, this next person coming in has to be a master presenter with really strong influencing skills. Now, you don't use the strengths assessment as a hiring tool. It's not traditionally used that way, but I knew that I needed to set a task and have them present it back to me in this interview process for me to know at short notice they were quite comfortable talking about something they're not familiar with, because that meant they had this innate ability to present and influence. I didn't know what their strengths were, but I was dying to do their strengths assessment once they came in, because I was fairly certain I'd picked it well, because I usually can. And without a doubt, I was actually hiring 2 people at that time, and both of them came in with exceptional presentation skills and communication, and actually a lot of influencing skills, which is not common. And this is why a lot of the influencing skills you don't see in most people's top 10. So it's quite common to not have those skills in a team. And therefore, if you look at product people, it's probably quite common not to have them as skills for a product person. So that can be a cause of a lot of pain for someone, but they've got to pretend that they're really good and confident and know what they're doing. And most people will not see the pain. I didn't find that, because I've got the influencing skills, but there's a lot of pain people feel individually if they don't have those skills as product people.
And you act.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exhausting. So that was an example where I did that. I actually hired specifically for influencing skills, because I knew I'd done all the assessments on everyone in my team and it wasn't there. So I needed that in my next 2 hires.
I think we are just talking about it, but what comes up in my mind is the fact that very rarely you have that when you're hiring for someone. Usually you look for a certain skill set, domain expertise. You look for even worse, a couple of years experience, which is a topic I see really controversial, because what does that mean, right? But yes. I think that alone is a mindset shift of saying, okay, understanding what is the strength we need in the team, and then hiring for that strength. If we look at the founder side of the building, like as a founder, you're maybe alone, maybe you're 3 people, maybe you're 4 people. How would you identify what is missing? How would you go about that?
I'm coaching a entrepreneur at the moment, and she's setting up a global not-for-profit, and it's a big task. She's never done this before. And in coaching her, she wanted to be coached on understanding what all of her strengths were. And we did all of that. And I said, but you know what's really important, because you're the founder of this organization and you're going to feel the pressure to be all things for this organization. I said, we really need to spend some time looking at your lesser strengths. And again, not because we're going to spend time making them stronger, but the first place when you get to a point of being able to afford other resources or to outsource anything, you need to identify what needs to be outsourced first, or what is not your greatest strength. Because pretending over because of ego is not going to serve you. And so recognizing, I mean, for me, I was really open with my team. Analytical, which is numbers and data and analysis and all of that kind of thing, is number 34 for me. So I say to my teams, the first thing I say is, numbers is not my thing. Do not come to me with a spreadsheet. I have to look up how to do a pivot table every time I work a spreadsheet. And I'm sick of pretending. But I said, do the analysis and come to me. Let's have a discussion. And I can spot trends. I can see things that are going wrong. And it was just an understanding we had. And it wasn't me not doing my work, because I would pick up all the presentations and do other things for people. And it worked because I got energized doing that work. And somebody else in the team said, oh, I'll take that on, the analysis, because they got energized by that. What's the point in two people being drained doing things they don't want to do? I mean, it's just so logical, but it's just not how it's done. But for me, it's logical. This is how it should be.
Love it. Absolutely great. I think that kind of whole topic again is so deep, and like putting it into action requires a bit more of an understanding, but also a lot of like putting it into practice, I think. And that's maybe the last question for today. Now we have that impulse today, so we listened to you. You gave absolutely great advice, great insights. How to like keep doing it, how to not like you did that strength assessment, and then half a year later, we all have been to those like workshops, totally energetic, and then it drains a bit. What is your suggestion to keep that mode of working together and staying in that mode?
So this is where I think it's that whole thing about, we're no longer managers, we're leaders that coach. And what I wove into our team monthly meetings, we'd have a sometimes half day, full day offsite. We'd focus on something to do with strengths as a team again, and I'd have a different activity. And, you know, one session it might be, we'll focus on well-being, and you can set some goals around the different aspects of your life. But then it would link into the strengths of saying, well, why is that aspect of your life not working? What's going on? Which strengths are getting in the way? That maybe you're overworked because you've got high responsibility, which is a talent, and you volunteer for everything, which I know about because that's me. Or is it that you haven't got discipline, therefore you can't get a regular exercise routine in place? So in talking about well-being and doing an exercise about well-being, we always link it back to strengths, because they drive the way you think, feel and behave. So every action, the way you see the world, the way you respond, is all driven by your strengths. So in every offsite, we would always weave strengths in. In every meeting, I would have a coaching conversation with someone afterwards and say, you know, the reason that happened is because I noticed that you allowed this to occur, and that's your harmony. And you didn't want to cause ruffled feathers in the meeting, but you know that by doing that, it didn't achieve the outcome. And I go, I know. So, you know, it's little things all the time. But I had the benefit of being trained in strengths coaching and knowing how to coach. But, you know, why shouldn't every manager? That's my question.
Absolutely. I think that's an absolute perfect ending for this episode. Why shouldn't every manager be trained in strength coaching? I totally agree. I think it's absolutely essential to really understand the topic and play towards the strength of your team. Thank you, Binny. This was, again, a very powerful, very educative session and episode. I really enjoyed talking to you. and I hope to see you soon again.
Yeah, absolutely. I could talk about strengths for hours. So thank you. I loved it.
Yeah, I was just thinking maybe it would be cool to talk about every strength, but then this would be an online masterclass in strength
well,
coaching.
who knows
probably.
where this is going to go.
Awesome. Thanks a lot to all of you for listening. I think this was a very cool episode. If you have any comments or questions, please just use the comment section. Write to us. If you are looking for a coach, I think Binny is also a good person to ask. And looking forward to the next episode. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Felix.